Hey guys, so yeah, I love this time of year, like the end of winter, March. It's still cold outside, but it feels like spring is in the air, like the birdies were singing this morning. Yeah, March is one of my favorite months, but yeah, anyways, I never really discussed my political views. Like, I don't really think politics are important to my channel. I don't really like politics that much. It's not something I enjoy discussing. It can be, quite polarizing. Like, I don't want to be a political commentary channel. Like, politics is stressful for me, but I just wanted to make a single video on the whole thing, on politics, and and just be done with it. So I don't really have that strong of viewpoints. Sometimes I agree with liberals, sometimes I agree with conservatives, sometimes I agree with feminists. I'm like, well, if they have a view that I'm good with, and I'm like, yeah, I agree with them. A lot of the time I can see different viewpoints, so I'm just like, yeah, do I really need to get involved in this? I'll just let others kind of like duke it out. So I tend to lean more conservative on most things. I think the liberal left ideology introduced some great concepts that definitely overall improve society. But to me, the way I kind of figure is the left ideology works, good, and it works fine when things are good and great, but maybe not so much when there's like quarrels, conflicts, and clashes. Conservatism is based more on traditional values that go back to the dawn of human civilization that has overall got us to where we are today and will work, no matter what the conditions are or like what the state of the world or society is in. But yeah, if you look at history, there were definitely things that were kind of messed up by today's society. So yeah, I do think there is room for both ideologies, conservatism and liberalism. But with left-wing progressivism, it's an ideology, where they want to continue to progress and try to improve things, and like they want to continue to tug, twist, and modify things in society without any sort of like limit or boundaries. Sometimes it seems to like overly cater to a subset. So sometimes it's nice just to stick to what is familiar and, what has worked out for us as a species. We don't live in a fair, just, and equal world. Not all humans are fair, just, and equal. Humans are very diverse, and I think that's how it's meant to be and how it works out. So yeah, I don't ever think we'll get to a point where everything is completely fair, just, and equal. Okay, now I just want to talk about the main political topics and give my views on that. So, science and education. It used to be that on the left they were more science and education oriented. I would say that they still are, but it's like pseudoscience and politicized science has made its way in the discourse. With conservatives, they tend to be not all conservatives, of course, but generally they're less science and education oriented. Like they have a skepticism towards, science and education, which I can understand to an extent, and where I just talked about, pseudoscience and politicized science and things of that nature. But to me, it's like they write it off more, which I don't really agree with or like. I think science is legit when it's done in the parameters of the scientific method, and it's not politicized, it's not pseudo-scientific. So I do agree with the scientific process and worldview. But it's like with science, I definitely agree that scientists, a lot of the time, they seem overzealous, they seem like overconfident, they seem like overly reassured about concepts that are highly theoretical. So, I definitely understand where the skepticism comes from, but it's like, to me, there needs to be context, because I definitely think that science is important. And it's like with some conservatives, like they conflate different things and just kind of write off, science a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. People also talk about the education system. There's this saying like there's this idea that some people have that there's all sorts of brainwashing and like different sorts of biases in the education system. So yeah, from my time in college, I didn't really feel like there was like brainwashing. I feel like it was more, liberal or left oriented for sure, but to me it seemed like that was just because it matched up more with, the research and data available at the time. That's kind of the sense that I got. But yeah, I would say that it was pretty balanced on both ends as far as like the political spectrum and views and things of that nature. So yeah, I'm not going to say that none of that type of thing is going on, because I don't know for sure. I think more of what it is from my experience is that some students get confused by all the different ideologies and ideas and stuff, and younger people seem to be more liberal anyways. Well, that's how it has been here in the US, where younger people tend to lean more left. So I don't know if it's the schools trying to cater to that, like the colleges and universities trying to cater to that. I think it's more of that, I would say. But yeah, I do think that college and education is important. I don't think that everyone needs to go to college. I think it's just a tool. Some professions need college educated people. I don't really think it'll make or break you as a person or anything like that. So abortion. With abortion, I understand the arguments against abortion and the arguments for abortion. So to me, it's like a personal view that a woman has. While I think those against abortion have strong arguments, I don't really agree with the arguments against abortion. I kind of think abortion is a medical decision that should be made between a woman and her doctor. People say abortion is killing, it's done as birth control, things of that nature. To me, it's like, I don't think it should be anyone's business for why someone is getting an abortion outside of, regulations. I mean, there's different factors to consider when talking about those things. So yeah, I do think abortion should be legal in some capacity and protected under HIPAA. Next, I'm going to talk about LGBTQ. With LGBTQ issues, I'm very libertarian. I believe in religious rights in that regard as well. They have the right to refuse service or disagree. With transgenderism, I have a bit of a different view. It's not that I think negatively about transgender people. There's just some issues with safety issues that I have, like with trans women and women's dress rooms and bathrooms. I really do think that there's a lot of men that could share women's bathrooms. I think there are many men who won't try to take advantage of women and will actually use the bathroom when they're in the bathroom. They won't annoy or bother or cause any harm to women in the bathroom. The thing is, though, is that there's enough men that would use this against women and make that environment not safe. Now you can apply that to the transgender population. My thing is humans are not all made the same. Some humans are predators, some humans have no desire to take advantage of unwilling participants. So it's you can't just say because most men wouldn't do this, well, just let them all in the women's bathroom. I don't think most trans women would misbehave that way. Most people aren't that twisted or messed up, basically. I don't think most men would, but we still don't let them in the women's bathroom. There's more of a danger with men, so you're just relying on people's brain to do this or not do this. So, I mean, you shouldn't rely on people's decency and morals. But yeah, other than that, I still think that gay, lesbian, transgender should be able to marry and do whatever they want with their bodies. They aren't harming anyone, so I don't have a problem with it. Okay, so on to law and crime. With law and order, I'm a bit more tough. I think people talk about prison overcrowding and things like that, and I'm well, if you used the death penalty more often for taking someone's life, it would be less of a problem. With drugs, I don't think that drug addicts are part of a disease or anything. I understand people have different sorts of addictions and mental issues like that, but with drugs, it's you could have said no. So I just think you're breaking the law and should be put away. I do not believe in legalizing marijuana. With immigration, I'm very conservative. Citizenship should be for people who are born to citizens and for legal immigrants. I don't blame legal immigrants for being here. If they're here, they ask to be here, and it's legal to be here, we let them in, then it's our fault for whatever they become. If they're a failure on welfare, that's not their fault. They asked to come. We allowed them to come. There's nothing wrong with this situation. They are who they were going to be. Our country should have seen that beforehand. If they don't, then that's the country's fault. With the Middle East conflict, I'm definitely pro-Israel. Israel, to me, is a nation with a spine. I don't like weak countries. People need to be protecting themselves in their own countries. There's a war right now and people don't seem to be responding appropriately. They're worried about the war-torn Gaza. I mean, that's what a war is. There's, actual atrocities happening in Sudan with the black Africans in Sudan. I don't see anyone talking about that. Then maybe I would take, the people crying and whining about the war going on in Gaza, maybe I would take them seriously if they treated different situations equally, but they're not doing that. I do commend Israel for defending its country and its citizens. Yeah, sometimes that involves causing a lot of death and destruction. But I mean, yeah, if that's what needs to be done, then that's not Israel's fault. As far as Lebanon and Syria and the other conflicts in the region, telling Israel to withdraw from their borders, it's like, you're a failed state, ma'am and sir. You clearly cannot control your own territory, and you need to be worried about a terrorist organization, attacking another nation from your territory. So yeah, greater Israel. People talk about international law. They don't really know what they're talking about. It's legal under international law to redraw borders that you can defend yourself from. So yeah, I think the population living in those areas, in those states, they should leave and not be able to return to that territory, and that territory should become a part of Israel. So people talk about the fourth Geneva Convention. So the fourth Geneva Convention was meant to prevent what Hitler was doing. So yeah, I don't know, the terrorist organizations operating over there, they seem more in tow of what Hitler was doing. The fourth Geneva Convention states that it's illegal to move a civilian population in occupied territory. So the problem with that interpretation that's being used is that it's legal to defend yourself in occupied territory. And, sorry if you're aiding and abetting terrorists and a terrorist organization, then you're not an uninvolved civilian. With NATO and Russia and Europe and that issue, I agree with Trump that we should reduce our NATO contributions. Like, Europe is a whole continent with a population higher than ours, and the US, a GDP similar to ours, so I don't think that they need us to defend them. I think they need to defend themselves, and I think that we should stop contributing as much financially and otherwise. And people talk about, well, what about Israel? To me that's different, because they're a small country and they're surrounded by different hostile actors, like a hostile environment. And I think that we benefit more from working with Israel. So yeah. Also, Ukraine has a whole continent behind it. So no, I don't think that we need to get involved. I think that Europe needs to deal with their own continent. So I do agree with isolationism. I'm very America first. And I think we should have, much of what we need here within our own borders.